We have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass, as always, is my partner, Mark Wages. There's also a cat right next to me. So, just before we get rolling, if you happen to be on last night's live feed, interesting thing happened. I was just talking to my partner before we went live. If you do 550 of these, you get thicker skin over time. And, the truth of the matter is you get pretty good, unless you're not self-aware or you're a narcissist, you get pretty good at going, yeah, we weren't really great last night. Just one of those things, and maybe not for lack of effort, or there was something on, our minds or whatever. And you kind of hope that those are on a day where not a lot of people watch, right? Or a lot of views come in, but the amount of time they were actually on, is quite shorter. And so yesterday was just one of those anomaly shows where not a lot of people caught it. However, we have never had a show that had more people reach out to us to say that show is incredible. And I'm so happy that it went down that way, because this is really just proof positive of what the two of us are saying all of the time. My response to a lot of these people in the emails was, yeah, what do you think made it so good? Because, what was the real difference between last night and the average night? Well, there's a lot more people who were very involved in last night's show. Anytime the crew is really involved, then we have those epic shows. So live and learn, right, from that. And it's funny because I thought this might be a decent segue for tonight's conversation, which is about conversation, more or less. We're going to talk about communication. And if you've been listening to the boat for any length of time, I don't know how many shows we've done on this, but it's been a hefty amount. Gotta be at least 6 or 7, doesn't it?
Something like that. It has to be at least that.
It's been a lot of them. And there's a reason for that. The reason for it is it's the backbone and the basis of almost everything. And we've said that many times, but what we say, that the opposite of addiction is connection, right? If you're not good at communicating, well, then you're not good at connecting. And if you're 45 years old and you've been doing dope for the last 20 years, you're probably thinking it's a little late in life, for me to start working on communication. And the truth of the matter is that's garbage. Now, you may not become a public speaker, or you may not become the greatest conversationalist, but what we're doing here right now, believe it or not, is a conversation. Right? There's one guy talking a lot, another guy that's talking a little, and you guys not talking at all, but we're all having a conversation. And when you start to think about what is the goal of a conversation, it is a very, very interesting question to ask people. right? I did that today. I asked people within my sphere of influence. We had a good day today, sold a bunch of watches, and I was around a lot of people. And I'd say, hey, what do you consider the purpose for for conversation? How would you define it? And a lot of these guys thought they were funny. It was like anything where a watch gets sold. I'm like, yeah, well done. But the people that took it seriously say things like, well, it's where you're each trying to get a point across to a person. And in a great conversation, that person's trying to get a point across to you. And in a perfect conversation, one of them's a Democrat, one of them's a Republican. And the two of them literally don't do ego speak. They're actually listening to the other person. I heard a exercise. I don't remember if I heard it in a drug group or if maybe it was Jordan Peterson, because I listen to him a lot. But they said, there's an exercise you can do. Let's say you're sitting and arguing with somebody, and it's just things aren't going well, and it's escalating, and it's starting to get nasty. All right, you're not allowed to say anything else until you articulate what the other person is saying, right? So if you're talking about gun control and there's a person that says, we need background checks, we need all of these things, and you're just at each other's throats. Well, the gun guy, the Second Amendment guy, would have to say, all right, so what you're basically saying is that you want universal background checks, meaning no matter how a gun gets purchased, right? And articulate the entire thing. And if the person across from them says, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say, then you're allowed to make your point. Can you imagine having conversations like that? No, of course you can't. Because we live in a world today where communication means something completely different. Now communication is two people talking. And if I can get you to say, yeah, you're right, well, then I won. And very often these days, there's a winner and a loser in communication. Conversations, everyone has a winner and a loser. What the hell happened? Right? Yeah. That's not what is supposed to happen. This is supposed to be something that broadens the horizons of everybody involved. You can learn from people. Got a really funny one for you. You can learn from people who are not very smart. You can learn from people that aren't even close to as intelligent as you are. Right? You guys learn from me. Probably not as smart as most people in the room. But the reason that we don't learn from everybody, because you can learn from everybody, is because we don't listen. Right? We're too busy. Let's say the same case scenario, right? And I'm pro Second Amendment, and somebody comes up and says, well, let me explain to you. I go, goof. I shut down. Doesn't matter what that person's saying. They're going, wah, 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 wah. Yep. All I'm waiting for is the pause. They literally could be speaking a different language because I'm just waiting for that pause, right? If they give it a 2 or 3 second pause, or I'm listening for one of those words like, know what I mean? You understand?
A segue
Which is now
word.
Now I can pull out the 6-shooter and I can show them just how damn articulate I am and how many times I have practiced this exact speech to slap them down.
Yep.
Right? And then I can walk away with a small feeling of superiority if I can say, oh, I definitely won that argument. But if you didn't convince the person you're talking to, or at least make them understand your point, you didn't win crap. And sadly, nobody learned anything either.
Well, you used the word there, Tommy.
What's that?
You used the word there that you said argument.
Yeah.
It went from a conversation to an argument.
Absolutely no mistaking. That's what happens. It escalates. It gets ugly. Communication has really gone away. Yep. You need to use I feel statements. Well, absolutely. And this is something that has caught on a lot in recent years. But I think that I feel statements work really well when the person that you're talking to is somebody that you really care about. Because in the example I was just using, if my bobbleheaded partner and I are having a bit of a debate, and I am leaning hard in the Second Amendment, and he is, totally against any guns of any kind, right? If I say, I really feel, he's going to go, I'll give a crap how you feel, right? You're a right-wing piece of crap. And the other guy's going, yeah, you're a left-wing garbage. See, communication doesn't exist. So to say, let me tell you how I feel. Once again, you know what they're hearing? Wah, 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 wah. I feel works great if you're talking to your loved one, your significant other. Because if you say to someone who you at one time pledged to spend the rest of your life with, if you say, let me tell you how I feel when you do that, it hurts me. Well, if you love that person,
right? That is a really great effect, especially if it's true. If you can see hurt in your partner's eyes, there's not much as a good person that you won't try to do to fix that. And it is always a better form of argument and communication. But outside those kind of relationships, we have reached a point where we're adversaries, right? We're adversaries. And even if you say, well, we're both on the same side of the argument. I get together with a guy and I'm a staunch liberal and he's a staunch liberal. And we talk, we're going to find something along the way that we don't agree on. See, the reason people is crazy, this is what happened and it got kind of weird. Back in the day, there were really two big main talking points, right? The conservatives believed that smaller government was good, right? And that the government should stay out of people's lives and that there shouldn't be a whole lot of taxes. And the other side of the aisle thought government should really help people every time they need help. They should do everything within their power to make sure that nobody's hurting. And the way to do that is to tax people as much as possible, right? So that's really not a huge difference. Everybody was pulling in the same direction. They just had a different view of how to get there. Well, today, there's one party that says that patriotism is racist, right? Well, both parties used to think patriotism was cool, but we have learned as a society, sadly, that you can hijack words. My daughter's my favorite person in the world, and her best friend is African American, and the two of them have been friends. I told you about my daughter had a heart condition. She was born with a very unique heart condition, and this girl was as well. So they both used to go every summer to this camp, right? Camp Corazon, right? For all these kids that were born with very specific heart ailments. And I think in the early days, it was, to treat these kids as nice as possible before they didn't make it. And then science really caught up and things got great. And now these people live full lives, to adulthood and beyond. So these two grew up together. Very, very cool. And they're very, very good friends until just recently. And my daughter actually went to a counseling session with this girl, right? Because they're trying to figure out ways to communicate. But here was the problem. The problem was the girl gave a list of words to my daughter that my daughter can't say. And the reason is they're not because they're trigger words, because that kind of crap flies around everywhere. Not that. They don't belong to her race. Like the word ghetto. And my daughter started to read down this list. And I said to her, do you know what a ghetto is? And she gave me the definition of a millennial. And I said, ghettos used to describe any part of a city where all of the inhabitants or the majority of the inhabitants were all of one nationality. So you would have in New York an Italian ghetto, right? Like Bensonhurst. Everybody in the neighborhood is Italian. So that was an Italian ghetto. The houses could be worth $1 million a piece. A ghetto just meant that everybody there was of one nationality. And that was how things happened in the early, development of the US. When people came up from another country, they didn't do this because they were racist. They did because they didn't speak English, right? So they needed to find the Italian section of town so they could communicate while they were learning the language and the culture and all of those things. Well, can you imagine somebody saying, here's a list of words that you can't say? I got news for you. I hope at least one millennial sees this show. You don't own any words. I don't care what. We don't own any words. They don't own any words. You understand? Words are not something that belongs to one person. You're going to mess with my communication. You're going to tell me what I can say and what I can't say. What's next? What's next? So here's the thing. You think this is going to get fixed, right? It will. I guarantee you it will. Because when you pull a bowstring back, it snaps in the opposite direction. It doesn't come to here. You keep taking away rights and taking away rights and taking away rights. There's going to come a generation. It may not be this one, might be the one after it, who are going to go, screw that. I'm going to say whatever I want to say. We've seen it happen before. Now, this is all played out before, right? The comedians like Lenny Bruce, first guys that ever went on stage and dropped F-bombs. And people went, good Lord, and they arrested them. And people said, you may not like it, but you can't stop him from saying it. Well, we're going to get back to that. And unfortunately, usually when we do, again, it doesn't come to here. It's got to go way to the other side. So they will say, watch how far I take free speech. Watch how far I take free speech. It's going to get ugly. Might not be in our lifetime. Probably not mine for sure. So what can you do? Well, the best thing that we can do is realize that the number one weapon we got to stay sober is communication. So when we say things here like we're not going to talk about politics, right? I'd love to tell you what I believe. I would. But see, that's not the world we live in, right? Because yesterday's show was fantastic. And I went through a series of questions. If you weren't on the show, one of them concerned my religion, which I took, by the way, I timed 14 seconds to tell you about. That was it. Do you know we lost for the first time, and I don't know how long, a group of people who just flew off the channel? Because we've gotten to a point where if you do not believe everything I believe, then we can't be friends, right? It's bizarre, isn't it? And you know what? You know why this has happened? Honest to God, in one word, you know why this has happened? Communication. I can make you fear anything if you can't go talk about it. You know, racism is a very easy thing to teach somebody until they get around whatever hate you're trying to, you know, all of a sudden you get these people together and they realize, you know what, there's nothing different between me and him. This is a word that Mark has defined for us many times, and I think it's essential. Ignorance, right? My bobble-headed partner has another channel, and most of you have been there, right? And he talks about space weather. And, you know, when Mark and I first started, I was the most ignorant man on the planet when it came to space weather. I didn't know anything. I didn't realize that there was weather in space, or if there was, you know, how does this work? It's a vacuum. I knew nothing. It doesn't make me stupid. I assure you, I'm not dumb, but I was ignorant of anything in that field. Well, if you've never met someone of another race and you go, well, how could that happen? Well, I grew up in Vermont. And when I was growing up in Vermont, you just didn't meet anybody of another race. I didn't see anyone of another race until my junior year in high school, when one transferred to our school. And do you think that that person was beat on? Every person on the planet wanted to know this dude, right? This was just, no one had ever been, you know, indoctrinated against that crap. And here was somebody that was different. We wanted to find out everything there was to find out. This guy had a difficult time figuring out who to talk to because there was 65 people that wanted to sit with him.
Yep.
Right? That's normal behavior. You have to teach someone not to be curious. Do you know how you end ignorance? You communicate.
Yep.
Communication is the key to everything. It ends racism. It ends everything, right? Bigotry, ignorance, anything. Talk about it and watch what happens. And the reason that we're talking about this here is because we may not be able to fix anything, right? We really may not be able to fix anything, but you damn well better believe we can fix it here.
Yep.
You
Sure
hear me?
can.
We can fix it here because we're blessed with the big button. Now, if you look at the difference between the big red button and television, we grew up with TV, most of us, right? Because our demographic is a little bit longer in the tooth than the millennials. So most of us grew up of a specific time. Okay, Tommy, you know, Tommy, you and I could have that conversation. We really could. It may not be a great idea to have it here.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. That's a
and that's
point.
what we're going to do. I love that all of you have different opinions. And I want to tell you something. If one of you says to me sometime, I really do want to know exactly what you think, and I assure you it's not going to run me away from the boat.
Nope.
Well, then you know what? We'll get on the phone and I'll tell you what I think about everything, because trust and believe I'm opinionated. But the job here, more than anything in the world, I just want to see people get sober. And this may come as a shocker. I don't care if they're Republicans or Democrats.
Exactly.
I just want them to be sober. Let's just say I was a Democrat. Well, you can't turn Republicans Democrats if they're dead. Or let's say I'm a Republican. You can't bring liberals over to the other side if they're dead.
Yep.
You can't persuade anybody of anything if they're dead. And if people are doing the drugs that are out today, one of two things is going to happen. They're going to die without breathing, or they're going to die while breathing. right? Because
Exactly.
you look at Kensington, go watch the videos.
That's
Those
so,
people are dead.
my God, that's such a great
Those
point.
people are dead.
Yeah.
I mean, they get up and they shuffle around through town, but make no mistake, they're dead. Right now, you know what else is dying? Television, pretty much in its death throes. And they've tried to get smart. They've tried to move things forward. And what happened is, they still are not getting any of the love. Whereas the big red button is growing really quickly, right? It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And any platform like it is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, the big red button, right? YouTube can do anything that television can do. Well, you like the show Happy Days? We could put it on YouTube, right? So the difference is that TV can't do what the big red button can. And you know the difference? The difference is you watch television. Here we communicate.
Exactly.
Here you communicate. The people that you're watching, you got an opportunity, even if it isn't like this, where we go, hey, call in, we'll talk to you about it. Right. Yep. Even if it's not that kind of ability to let them know, there's still a comment box. And it's not, I'm going to write a letter or I'm going to go send an email. It's instant, right? You watch for 5 minutes and you go, man, you're an idiot. I can't believe, or that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. Right. And it makes you feel like there's some form of connection. And I've said this before, this experiment that we're doing right here on the boat is what the people that started the internet used to say it was going to be. People from every country coming together because of a rallying cry. Now, my brother is, a pepper legend. and
He hates that.
And everybody in that group, they all come together and they rally. And my brother knows people in literally every part of the world. Yep. He's gone to the Philippines. He's gone everywhere just eating peppers because they have a rallying point. They have something that, they're going to talk about, which is the thing that brings them together. Yeah, you may not be exactly like us, but you know what a Carolina Reaper burns like, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what we've got right here may be the most important thing. Hell, what am I saying? It's the most important thing in the world. We're saving people from a disease that medicine can't cure them from. We really do have what medicine can't do. We have successfully, and I don't say we, I say we, right? Not me and Mark. The boat has successfully brought people who have gotten sober. You saw when Mark put it up, we're talking about millions of days of sobriety. And the reason it's happening is because we all truthfully care about one another.
Yeah.
Now,
it's down there in the bottom left, by the way. It's in the bottom left of the screen.
Who is?
The bottom left of the screen. It's down there at the bottom. The number.
Oh, okay.
The number days.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. And if you do want to call in, the number's on the bottom. Feel free to. And I don't care what you're talking about.
We got Aaron's here, but I was talking about the number of days sober. I got that number in the bottom left.
Sorry, I did not realize that.
Yeah, you wouldn't have. I changed it. So.
Okay, good. So the bottom left of the screen has got the number of days that we have been sober. I want to tell you something, people. I wish I could do an experiment. Come out tomorrow and say, I'm going to do a 3-hour show tomorrow, live. And I'm going to tell you virtually every opinion I have on anything. You name one of the damn talking points on the planet, and I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. And we could watch the subscriber count. But those things are not as important to me as somebody getting sober. The reason that we're on this platform is because the other ones were very much like television. And this one is very much different. We can communicate with one another. We can bond and we can care about one another. And yesterday's show just proved that that is the case. Did you say Aaron is on the line?
Yeah, I just muted him again because we're getting some funky echo. But yeah, I can bring him in now if you want to talk.
You know ready? What? Let me give you a preface before you bring Aaron in.
Okay.
He's a cerebral cat. You want to talk about a dude that communicates?
Yeah.
This dude doesn't call in. If I'm talking about anything that doesn't have a little bit of an edge. I love it when Aaron calls. Let's hear him.
Okay. You ready?
Right. Yes. Good. Well done, JJ.
Go ahead and unmute there. Yeah, there you are, Aaron. What's up, bud?
How you guys doing?
Doing okay, bud.
Living the dream.
Okay, so I wanted to call in more on the aspect of communication. Typically, what I know more so is politics. I'm less involved in the drug scene, but
Okay.
I think when it comes to communication, I think I have a couple points I'd like to talk about, and if they get too political, feel free to just cut me off at any point.
Okay.
But the first is just going to be loose definitions of things. Like one thing you mentioned is the gun control argument.
Uh-huh.
And one of my least favorite things about that people say is common sense gun reform. And
Common
they'll always
sense?
use these terms, common decency, common courtesy, all that. Which common sense and most of that stuff is not that common nowadays anyway.
It's uncommon.
Yeah, but I just hate that definition, because to say common sense gun reform means if it's common sense, everybody with common sense out there would instantly realize this is the way to go.
And
And if you
Aaron,
have
what they're
half of
saying
it-
is everybody else that doesn't think that is stupid. It's a way to jump from there. This is common sense. You guys have no sense. It's even the way they use every word is meant to almost subliminally, everything. And that happens on both sides. The people who say, well, I'm pro-life. So the other side, well, you wouldn't say the other side's pro-choice. You'd say it's pro-death. And so both parties, whether you're the conservative or the liberals, do the exact same thing. They try to weaponize the words. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're all right. Yeah, I was gonna say, and well, actually, I won't say that. I won't go a step further. But yeah, there's a lot of things like, I don't know, the loose definitions, like with how many accusations are thrown out there nowadays, like the term racism and other things. I just think it's deteriorating words and the definitions of things and the actual meaning of something. Because if someone is a true racist, I think 99.9% of people in America, if not more, would stand up against that racism and say this is a horrible thing. But yeah, the definitions have just gone so loose. And another one that I'm going to step into is pronouns and preferred pronouns. I mean, America currently is the only country in the world with free speech. Every other country you can be put in jail, given fines, put before human rights tribunals for speaking something that's considered hate speech, which is defined differently by every person on earth,
Sure.
or something offensive. And I just don't know where that's going to end. I don't have a TikTok, but I'll watch memes and other stuff of it. And I saw one recently of a biological man. He probably identifies as a cat or something, but he went on and he's like, my pronoun is, and then he proceeded to scream.
Oh, I
into
saw
the
this.
camera. And then he's
saw
like,
this.
and I prefer to be referred to as, and he screams into the camera again. And I just want to know when that will stop. And if, I don't know, I do lean more right. And I think what's going on now is making me lean more and more right. But at a certain point, I don't know, if they want to use pronouns, shouldn't we be able to determine our own adjectives? If I want to call myself sexy and handsome or whatever
I think
along
I
those
said that one
lines.
time on the show. I
Oh,
completely
sorry.
understand that.
Okay, no, I
Um,
must have not seen that one, but
Yeah,
What else?
well, just a reason to go back and watch more of them. You know something? I would like one time to talk with you where we could let it all hang out, because I know you and I could talk about things, and regardless of what side of the aisle we came down on, I know we could have a discussion and we could end up friends afterwards. I went to college with a guy whose name was Angelo. He was my roommate freshman year in college. And we literally used to debate very often religion until about 4 or 5 in the morning, right? Just going at each other, not mean, but making points. And I'll be honest with you, nobody ever won, not in a year of doing this. But I know that both of us know a heck of a lot more about the other side. And we left the best of friends. It never got personal, but these days, if you don't agree with me, then I got to call you an idiot. And they even do it on news. It's
Yeah.
sad.
yeah, I mean, the idea of having a civil conversation with somebody, like recently I saw a video of Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro on the Dave Rubin show. And Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro both obviously lean pretty right. Dave Rubin has always leaned pretty left. And at this point, he's going a little more center. but they, for about 10 minutes straight, they were discussing the idea of Christianity versus Judaism. And at no point did they get a harsh word. Did they get aggressive? Did they start raising their voice, insulting each other? And I think there's just been a basic breakdown in communication nowadays. And I think freedom of speech is what's liberated more groups and given more freedom to everybody in the world, sort of thing. That's been the biggest advocate and sort of determining factor for how free and the rights people receive by how much they can actually talk and debate about these issues. And obviously I lean more right. I think the left is definitely more at fault of this. I mean, I own plenty of guns. I was born in Texas, sort of thing, but I don't know, I wouldn't say I'm a libertarian. I just think a smaller government and more conservative is the way to go. Obviously there's arguments against that, and I know I'm not right in every single aspect, but that's just what I believe, in my opinion. But
look, and you know what? You articulated beautifully. Do you know why? And I will hold true to this. I've had people disagree with me on this. The reason that two people like Shapiro and Peterson can sit down and go at it like that is it's very much like two boxers going at it. If you've ever watched a boxing match where one of them stinks, is just a terrible boxer, it's not fun to watch, right? Because there's desperation and, you know, it just looks sloppy. But if you see two of them that are just amazing at what they do, well, that's really what you're seeing. You're seeing two guys who have a real command of their language and they can get their points across. People start calling you names when they don't have the ability to articulate what they want to say, right? If we spent more time saying, asking one another questions and caring about the answer, I think that we would do a lot better. Truthfully.
Yeah, I think, and there's also, I don't know, I think recently in the last 20 years or so, you've seen that communication breakdown where, yeah, if somebody doesn't agree with you, it's because they're immoral, evil, and to find common ground or even talk to them civilly is a way of humanizing. I think they're trying to humanize everyone else on the opposite side. But like, for example, 20 years ago, and I actually never got a chance to see this live because I'm in my 20s, but CNN had a segment, I forget the exact name, called the firing squad or something like that, where they would bring on a Republican and a Democrat and have them argue about basic issues in the world. And you used to see this sort of stuff out there, but today it's becoming farther and farther away from a conversation. It's all about an argument and winning points with your side. And I think, yeah, just the biggest issue right now is just the breakdown of language. And I think it's going to be a real threat pretty soon.
Okay, and you know what? And I appreciate the call. I really do. And I appreciate every point. And if you're listening, and if you're new to the boat or anything else, the importance of communication, there's no way to put too much emphasis on this. If you feel like you want to relapse, if you feel like you want to get high, and your first inclination is to not tell anybody about it, you're going to get high, right? You're going to get high. The number one way to not get wasted is to call someone who gives a crap prior to calling the dope man, prior to getting in the car to go drive to get booze. The thing I'm trying to hammer across is that I'm not, my partner and I, all of the blue wrenches, this is the most important thing that has anything to do with sobriety is communication. So if you want to come on and you want to articulate a point and do it the way he did, if you're offended by anything that he just said, right, there it is. Not because of what direction he's in, but because he never made it personal. He made his opinion. You could come on the other side and do the exact same thing. And if anybody was offended by that, I'd still want him to hit the exit. I don't want anybody ever to feel like they can't say something here without risking offending everybody. Now, since that's not possible, we 90% of the time don't talk about politics. We don't talk about religion. Now, it doesn't mean you can't say, I'm praying for you. It doesn't mean you can't say, but if you come on here and say, Boy, if Joe Biden sucked today, didn't he? Well, then we're going to be like every other channel, right? There's plenty of them out there. They're easy to find. What's not easy to find are channels where people come in and say, I'm hurting. Go ahead.
Oh no, my daughter, she hurt her arm.
Oh, okay. No. But yeah, it's the inability for the addict to tell people that they're hurting is the number one reason that they go back and use. On last night's show, we talked about the number one reason that people use drugs in the first place, because they're uncomfortable being themselves. Now, the reason that they're uncomfortable being themselves is very personal, right? Everybody has a different reason, but they're uncomfortable being themselves. And when they sit around doing nothing, that's usually when it's the worst. When their mind is allowed to run wild, then it reminds them just how much they do not like each other. Those weaning off. Weaning off of what? You know what I mean? We have people here abusing a whole lot of stuff. So would we be weaning off of alcohol? Would we be weaning off of opiates?
You know what the bridge device is, Tommy?
You know, here's the thing. I do not. Do you?
I do. Yeah.
What's your opinion, partner?
Well, my opinion on that is that it is a very short-term fix, because they can only, what it is, it's an electrical device that they put behind your ear, and it's called the bridge device, obviously. And what you do is you turn it on, they dial in a frequency, and there's a lot of studies, and I've actually seen some of them because it does work short-term. You'll go in there and severe withdrawal, they dial the frequency in to where you feel better, and they just leave it on you.
Well,
it works for like 3 days.
Well, here's the thing.
So I really don't have an opinion on it because I've never tried it. I
have never heard that called the bridge device, but I have done it.
Have you?
I went to I went to a rehabilitation center called Chapman that is about $1,200 or $1,300 a day, and that was the goal originally. When you get there, is that they're going to give you a shot of doing this without drugs. And there was acupuncture. There was all these different things. And exactly what you were describing. I never heard it called the bridge. But yeah, and they start changing the frequency and saying, how does this, you doing better? You doing better? And it takes the edge off. It absolutely does. Here's the problem. You can't wear that for the rest of your life, right? The point is not necessarily the cessation. There's a ton of drugs you can go into a place and do benzo detox for 7 days being completely unconscious. The rubber meets the road once you're done with that, right? Because the reason that you wanted to get high in the first place, depending on the determination of the person, and I'm sure it works longer than 3 days. Everyone look into it yourself. Yeah, the determination of the person. I had a 7 gram a day heroin.
They will not. I know for a fact they will not leave it on longer than 5 days at a time.
Well, I was the most determined person in the entire world.
That's a fact.
I was determined to go out the window, to go over the edge. I was determined to rob banks, hurt people, whatever had to be done to get drugs. And getting off of the heroin, getting it out of my system, only took 72 hours. The real rubber meeting the road is from what happens to that point on. Right. And I don't know if you want to walk around.
I'll say this. Where I live, they offered it for free. And they were, because what they were doing, they were getting you into the studies that they were doing. They were trying to, and it's a good premise if it was to work really well for long term, but they could never get it to work long term. And they would put you in the hospital. You would have to come in severe withdrawal. And I've seen multiple videos of people coming into it, and they would be like severely shaking, and within a half hour, they're back down, they're feeling fine. For me, if that was going to be used, it would have to be for short-term detox purposes. It could not be for long-term staying sober purposes. That's just my opinion. But
yeah. Jonathan Hicks, I'm going to get back to you in 1 second because that's a great question. But he says, but most people have a hard time quitting because of the withdrawals. You know what? Most people have a tough time getting through the withdrawals. It's not the reason that most people die addicted, because the average addict who ends up dead will go through 10 or 15 times where they detox completely. The problem becomes that the receptors in your brain demand the drug for the rest of your life. And it's that voice inside your head. If you talk to any addicts that have been addicted to heroin, there's this nagging feeling afterwards. And it really is because the drug use itself is not, it's not the problem, it's the symptom. So you've got to figure out what it is that's making the person want to do dope in the first place. And, you know, the only way to do that is by addicts talking to other addicts. As of right now, there's been no other way that works. So I'm a big proponent of addicts talking to addicts. If they come up with a device that helps people get off dope without getting dope sick, I'm all for it. I really am. This one wasn't the end all for me. Doesn't mean it won't be the end all for somebody else.
And
you know,
I would say this too. You know, I think that anybody that wants to try anything should. Okay, I really do. I think that's, you know, if you think that could work for you, fine. I mean, go for it. You know, we always say that here. That's what we do.
Sure.
You've got to try it. But the other thing I would say,
the smartest thing that he said is do the research for yourself.
Exactly.
That's the smartest thing he said.
Exactly. And I agree with
do
that.
the research for yourself.
And I would also say, guys, you know, the long-term thing, we just got to talking about that. Okay. The hardest part of addiction, the beat, is the mental part of it. It's not the actual physical withdrawal. So, you know, that's the initial, hey, we got to get past that. Now, so why does Suboxone work so well for people? Well, because they know that they don't have to feel that, and they can get their mental,
because it paints the receptors.
Yes, and you can get your mental capacity to the right point where you need to be to, at some point, titrate down, if that's what you want to do. Okay, then those are all options. And again, I actually entertained, because they approached me at a treatment center I was going to here, where I live here in Indiana, and they wanted me to do the bridge device. And they told me that I had to come off of my Suboxone for a week before I could do it. And I said, hit the bricks.
What would I need it for if
Yeah.
what would I need it for if I was off Suboxone for a week? There's no more withdrawals.
Yeah, that's
Jonathan Hicks. This is a cool question. It really is. Jonathan Hicks says, I would like to know, Tommy, how you keep it between the lines. I am too hostile to do what you do. I do love and care for people, but they let me down so much that I get frustrated with most. You know, Jonathan, it's, I'm sorry. And also, I mean, like, how you try so hard not to offend, you know, anyone. I got a bad habit of just saying it the way it is. You could ask my partner how I am when no one is here. Here's what it comes down to. Really, in a nutshell, Jonathan, here's what it comes down to. I am the most opinionated cat in the whole world. And I also believe that the most courageous thing that anyone can do is tell the truth. There is nothing more courageous. That's working without a net. Because if I come out here and I tell you all that I robbed banks and that I lied to people and that I hurt people for drugs and the things that I did, I don't know how it's going to go over. I don't know how the people, I could have fell flat on my face. And I'm sure that if I came out and BS'd and just said, you know what, I had a habit, I probably could have built a bigger audience, because there's a lot of them. I get emails from them. I'm not listening to a bank robber. Okay, well, I get it. But that's working without a net. But I think that truth is the most courageous thing in the entire world. I also believe that the only way truth works is through communication. So I don't want to run anybody off.
right.
I really don't. And you could, you know, a lot of times I hear people say, well, you know what, if they don't want to be here, fine.
That's not fine, though.
It isn't. And I'll tell you why. Some of the best people I know in the world, I hated at one time or another.
Yep.
Truthfully, some of the greatest people I know, I hated. And it wasn't because they were bad people. It was because they were in a bad time. They were doing dope, or I was doing dope, and the communication just wasn't there. So something has to bring those people into the fold so we can find out who they are. And you know what? They may be jackasses, and I won't want to spend any time with them.
Right.
But how do you know that if they're drugged?
You know, I would say this too, man. I mean, you said it takes a heroic person to be able to speak your mind and do those kinds of things. I would also say this, that it takes a very, very strong person to shut their mouth when they don't want to. And that's really what it boils down to for me and Tommy. Believe me, and most of the things that me and Tommy talk about, almost 99% of them, we agree with each other. So when he's saying something, I'm pretty much on board with him. So we don't really I don't think we've ever had anything where we just like completely disagreed on. But, you know, at the same time, when I like on my other channel, there are certain things that I will not allow to even be over there because, and I shut my mouth when people attack me. And people think that that's easy for me, and I'm a coward or whatever you want to say. Let me tell you something. 99% of the time that happens, I could stand up and put those people right back in their seat and make them cry home to mom if I wanted to. But I don't. Why? Because I care about everybody else that's in that room. That's why. It ain't about caring about what they say or do. It's about what I think I can do to help other people, and that's why me and Tommy are here. So if we choose to be quiet about something, there's a reason for it. It ain't because we don't have an opinion.
And here's really where I'm going to err on the side of this. I can talk to you about rehabilitation. I can talk to you about substances. I can talk to you about communication, and I can do every bit of it without talking about my political stance on anything, right? Occasionally, I rail on both parties because of what has happened, and I talk about things like that. On the other side of it, I tend to, from time to time, I say, I'm not shoving it down your throat, but the belief in God went a long way to getting me where I'm at today. If that is going to offend people, then I'm super sorry. But for the most part, I'm just going to try to not run anybody off. Now, I'm going to leave this subject because it's a really good one, and I'm going to leave it on this one. There's a video that I did, and you can go back and watch it. I'm wearing a tie. It'll be the only video that you've ever seen where I'm wearing a tie. We lost someone on the boat. I think we've lost 9 people on the boat so far in a year.
That was a rough one, though.
But we lost one that was rough. And, you know, we got the call that said, you know, she's passed, and it was this, or, you know, she died of a diabetic, situation, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, and I went and I did the show. And, you know how things, you know, you get to something a couple of days later, whatever. I read the email she sent me the night before, 2 days after she was dead. And if I had read that email the night before, I can truthfully and honestly say that she might not have been, right? She was reaching out to talk to me. She did not die of a diabetic overdose. She didn't. I mean, she made it real clear how she intended to die. And my goal is just to do no harm. I don't want to run somebody off who goes and overdoses. I don't want to miss an email and have somebody overdose. That's a heavy thing. Believe that. That's a heavy thing. So I like telling the truth. I really do. I like being who I am, and I like being able to just, you know, take the gloves off. And you know something? Maybe someday we'll all be at a point where we could do that. But God forbid somebody takes off. And we've had people here who literally left the show. And the funny thing is, in one day, we had 2 people leave. Funny story. Mark and I did a show where the both of us were sort of firing back and forth. And we had 2 people quit, right? Yep. Both of them sent an email. One said, I ain't hanging out on a channel with a bunch of liberals. And the other said, you know, you guys are way too conservative for me to hang out. And I thought, you know what? We're going to lose him. You remember that?
Yeah.
I'm like, if we're going to lose him, that's probably the way to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And listen, guys, you know, we've talked about this at length, even here live, doing what we do. And the thing I want to point out, and this is really what everybody really needs to grab a hold of here, if I could stress anything for myself, is the fact that when I'm talking to Tommy, or when I'm talking to one of you guys here on the show, or what have you, everybody else is listening to me. So I'm not just having a conversation with one person. You know, the whole time I'm talking, I have to be mindful, because that's the responsibility that me and Tommy have taken on, right? This is something that we take very seriously. So if we want to water the crop, we can't be over here spreading weeds on somebody when we're trying to, you know, we could be putting weeds over here with 100 people while we're trying to save one person, just because we're trying to have a conversation with one person right across from us.
Right.
We have to keep that in mind. Just as much good as can come from people listening to you, the bad stuff from third person listening happens also. So we have to keep that mindful for what me and Tommy do. Now, like Tommy said earlier, you want to have a conversation off the channel? I'll 100% tell you my
Sure.
views.
And I've had it with a bunch of
Yeah.
people
I
on
have
the boat
too.
know exactly what my feelings
Yeah.
are because they wanted to know. Albert Kerr, listen, my friend, in the amount of time that we've got left here, you need to send me an email the second that this video is over. You can reach me at captaintommyscoville@gmail.com, right? I'm the captain, captaintommyscoville@gmail.com. If you can't remember that one, how about sober@myyahoo.com? Sober, SOBER, at myyahoo.com.
And Brandon, thank you for that. Go ahead,
You and I
sorry.
need to speak to another. Thank you, Brandon. You and I need to speak to each other one-on-one. I didn't see it because I'm up looking for
That, I just
Albert.
seen it
But
too. I was talking.
thank you so much,
yeah.
Brandon.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. There's a couple of comments of people that said, you know what, you can't take on all of that. And again, how to quit cannabis. Send me an email, please. If I wish that we got those at the beginning of the show, but send me an email, and I assure you, I answer my emails. Is it too much for one person to handle? I don't handle it alone, right? So I got that going for me. It would be too much for one man to handle
It
alone.
would. Believe
Make
me.
no mistake.
Yeah.
But I lean really, really hard on my partner.
We have-
Lisa,
yeah, go ahead.
I don't take responsibility for someone that overdoses. I don't.
We used to, didn't
I
we?
wish I had an
Yeah.
opportunity to talk to this person before they decided to take their life, because the reason behind it was stupid. And I have a feeling, but I can't get every single one. Albert Kerr, thank you. I did email. I will email again. Albert, you emailed me and I didn't email you back. I find that really hard to believe, brother.
You might have hit the wrong one or something. Man.
Yeah,
Stuff happens, guys. Honestly.
Yeah, just please send it again.
Yeah.
CaptainTommyScoville@gmail.com.
And I'm there too, guys. I check my email once a day, just so you know.
Yeah.
I'm not digging into mine like Tommy is. That like he's. I think you got your notifications turned on, don't you?
I do. You betcha.
I don't. So I do check mine though once a day. So if it's an emergency, please by all means, Tommy has his emergency email now. Hit that
Yeah.
one first. But if it's something you just want to have a conversation with or anything like that, please, And the other thing, you can leave me a comment over on Wages World too. I got notifications turned on both channels. But for my email, if I was to leave that on, it would, because my other channel's tied to it.
Can you see that?
That's what happened. My internet stopped for a second. We should be
bummer.
okay. There it came back. It should be back.
Buffering.
Yeah.
We are frozen.
Not
Thank
anymore.
gosh we're frozen. It's 2 minutes till.
I think
Well, then
we're-
you probably didn't hear this. I don't want any of you worrying about me. Number one, I have a counselor. Number two, you know what, Albert, that could be the case, but we're going to overcome that. So send me an email to sober@myyahoo, not Yahoo, but yahoo.com. It's back, says SG. SG, good to see you.
They seen your phone is what Tommy B was saying there, so we're good.
Yeah, and what I said is this is the best buzz on the planet.
Yeah.
Make no mistake.
Yep.
It sucks really bad when we lose one. And Mark and I, spend a lot of time talking with one another. In the first 2 weeks, you can go back and watch the videos after the one I did in a tie, and you'll see that it took a while to get rolling again. But I'll tell you something. That happened 9 times last year. Do you know how many times we got an email from somebody that said I'm sober because of the boat? And when that happens, to me, nothing feels that good. I'm not lying, nothing. So, yeah, I couldn't stop if I wanted to, guys. I couldn't.
Yeah.
And I got a partner that I can call at the middle of the night and tell him I'm hurting. And he's been there for me like a blood brother. And I have a blood brother who's always there too. So we're good.
That's right. That's one notification that will never get shut off on my phone. I promise you that. That's
Well, and on the bright side, you're almost always up anyway.
that's the truth. My wife gets on me for that. I sleep maybe 2 hours.
He
a day.
sleeps less than I do.
Yeah.
And that's
Pretty bad.
saying something.
So, yeah. Believe me, I talk to counselors too, guys, and this is one of the things I deal with is insomnia, and it's because of my anxiety. I know I don't share that a whole lot, but Linda, if Linda's still here, she knows I talk about it in my Thursday night group. So me and Tommy are doing the same things you guys are, guys. You hear what I'm just saying there? I go to a group every week myself, so we all need it, I think, for most of us. And if you ever get to the point where you don't think you do, please talk and make sure that that's the case.
Right.
you know. So, but yeah,
Let's, and we did a lot of videos back when the boat was newer.
yeah,
If you make love your default setting,
yeah,
if somebody says something and what they said bums you out, if your response back kills them with kindness, or you just show nothing but love, if you're somebody on this boat who's been on this boat for a minute, I know you've read comments and gone, boy, if that dude said that to me, I wouldn't have come back with what they just said. It didn't used to be like that. I used to fire back. I used to do those things. And I learned that it only hurts my soul. It doesn't do squat to anyone else. And I don't want to hurt anybody else's soul.
I'm so glad
So-
too, man, because I watched you suffer, man. It made you suffer, dude. I watched you suffer over that.
Yeah.
it's hard.
Well,
It's hard to watch.
it does take a while. And if you're ever thinking about doing one of these channels, it's going to kick your butt a little, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
But the payout, if somebody wanted to do a sobriety channel, boy, I'd say go with it. I really would.
Yeah.
But don't think it's going to be all smooth sailing, because it's not.
And just because
I want to thank, go ahead.
just because somebody is new in recovery, don't you guys ever dare think that they don't have anything to add. Because I can tell you right now, those people probably have the most to add.
No question. Those of us that have been in recovery for the longest period of time, those people tend to forget what it was like. And when you're around somebody that is struggling in the early couple of days, right, the very beginning of this, it brings it all back. It keeps it
does.
real, and you will learn more. But I'll tell you something right now. If you get up every morning and you say, my goal before I close my eyes tonight is I'm going to learn something. I don't care what it is. I'm going to learn something today. If you take that tact every single day, you're going to find a passion. Something's going to go, ooh, this is it. Well, for me, that was drugs and sobriety. And, I try to learn a little more every single day. Look at today. I'm going to go and research the crap out of the bridge. I promise you, people, I'm going to know a lot about it in a short period of time.
And every one of you guys out there on the crew, I have to say, you guys are just awesome, because even, like I said, the ones that come in here early recovery, I know we're past time. I'll make it short. It's just,
Yeah, you know what? We started a bit late anyway,
yeah,
though.
I think we did, and we cut off there for like a minute too. So,
Leisure, great comment.
but I want you guys to know that when you guys bring your stuff and you tell us those kinds of things, it hits me, and it actually will quicken me to be like, yeah, I remember that, because I had forgotten some of that stuff. You guys allow me to remember that, and it keeps me on track, and it lets me not get so, hey, I know more than this person or that person. I don't never have to go through that again. Come on, man. I'll go right through it again if I ain't careful. I promise you that. I don't ever want to forget that. So just understand.
Hey,
that,
Brandon
guys.
Calloway, good to see you. Yeah, Leisure said that's why it's all about the newcomer, and there's really something to that. We get excited.
Yeah,
When somebody is new to the boat, then it's one more person that, let's be really honest, people. Being addicted to drugs sucks. Right? I don't wish that on my worst enemy. I really don't. And I sure as heck don't wish it on someone based solely on their political beliefs or something stupid like that. There was a comment that said, why don't you guys do an hour and a half? That would make me happy. You know what? I'd love to talk to you for 2 hours, but we've done a little research on this and it just doesn't pay off. They literally bury it.
Yeah,
because long form content doesn't sell.
They do.
At an hour, we're pushing the snot out of it.
Yep.
But we don't believe that anything less than an hour gets done what we're trying to get done, which is you all getting to know each other.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We've hit the big
No,
time
go.
too, man. We get hit with the tender hot porn sites on our freaking chat room too. You hit the big time when you see that.
Right?
Field goal, baby, touchdown.
Yeah, my brother did a 26-hour live feed.
Yeah, I remember that. That was crazy.
Right. That's my brother. If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing.
That's right.
All right, people. Here's the good news. We're going to be back tomorrow night.
That's right.
And people, feel free to fire off at the two of us about anything you want to see. There's still a question up there. If there's anything you guys want to see, I really do. Take those and then we do shows about them. Chances are I've already done a show about it, but we'll do it again. You have to keep revisiting stuff because let's face it, there's a lot of people out there that need help.
See you,
I am
CW.
Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass,
Mark Wages.
and the hardest working cat on YouTube. This is a cat in a basket. Good night, everybody. We love you. you.